Good morning, Boker Tov, everyone. Today we study Parashat Bamidbar. It's a new book of the Torah. Parashat Bamidbar, the word Bamidbar means in the desert. This is continuation of our journeys in the desert. And we actually get through most of the years of the desert journey in this book. Right now we're starting in year 2 of our journey. And then by the end of this book will be year 40, basically. Getting to the end of the journey. So this is our discussions and what goes on in the desert. And if you look at like the English Bibles, this book, which is really Numbers, is called, which is called Bamidbar in the desert, it's called Numbers. Why is it called Numbers? Because the book begins by taking a census. It's called Sefer HaPikudim. It's the book of Numbers. So what we'll do today is Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll go through what the parasha says, a few highlights, and maybe we'll say a few words about Shavuot also, given that Shavuot is in a few more hours later tonight. So that's important as well. Okay, Parashat Bamidbar. Torah begins by taking a census of Am Yisrael. And as it's taking a census by counting people, a few very important details. It counts men over the age of 20. Doesn't count women, doesn't count children, and doesn't count elderly above 60 either. Why? As the Torah says, as it's counting them, it's kol yotzet tzava beYisrael. The purpose of this counting was kol yotzet tzava, to know who can go fight in war. And the men were the ones fighting the war, not the women, not the children, and not the elderly. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that the numbers that we say today are not the total numbers. It's the numbers of able-bodied men who are able to go to war, everyone above the age of 20. And it's split up, the census is split up into 12 tribes, as there are 12 tribes. The tribe of Levi is treated a little bit differently. They're not Yotzei Tzava, they don't go out to war. And then, in addition to counting up how many people there are, the Torah also tells us the configuration of how the Jewish people were encamped, where they lived in the desert, meaning it wasn't just a free-for-all, you lived wherever you want. They lived in a specific from a reference point of the Mishkan. So where the Mishkan was, the tabernacle, where all of the korbanot were brought, next to that Mishkan was the levi'im lived there. Outside of the levi'im, to the east, west, north, and south, each family had their own place where they would live. And I'm actually going to show a graphic today to help with envisioning this. If anyone knows me, they know that I like numbers and I like Microsoft Excel. The parasha is counting up numbers, so obviously I had to throw the numbers into Excel just to play around with it and to see the Torah counts the totals for us. And I wanted to do a check. Is the total equal to what the numbers are? And yes, yeah. Hashem was able to do the math correctly. Actually, no, I'm missing a 50 because my total is not matching. My number, I'm missing something. Look at that. I'm going to have to do a double check, see what number I'm missing because my chart is not perfect. Let me share my screen and talk through it because a lot of the parasha is talking through what's on the screen, okay? So let's do this. I need someone to give me a thumbs up or something. Can you see the Excel chart? Anyone could give me a reaction. Okay, we got a thumbs up. Okay, very good. And if you could see it, hopefully you could see it well. First, we'll look at the picture on the right, and then we'll look at the numbers. So in the center of the camp of the Jewish people, over here, right in this area, is the Mishkan. You could see they have smoke coming off it, covered with clouds. This right here in the center is where the Mishkan was, and all of the service of the Mishkan was done. I actually think I saw another picture somewhere. They gave more detail on that. We could look at that another time. Then, immediately around the Mishkan, you had east, west, north, and south. So here in this picture, the east is where it says Judah. This is in the eastern direction. Up here, you could see it says west. So when you look at that inner camp, so let's do this on the fly. Actually, it's probably not going to be, maybe I won't, but you're going to have the Mishkan here in the middle. To the east of the Mishkan is where Moshe, Aaron, and his sons lived. Moshe, Aaron, and his sons. Then to the south was Kehat. To the west was Gershon. To the north was Merari. And I could go ahead and drop this. I just pulled this picture off Pinterest. I don't know whose picture it is. A.B. Goldsby. I don't know who that is, but it's a nice rendition. Outside of this camp, so what is this camp over here called? It's called the Machane Levi'ah, the camp of the levi'im. Where the Mishkan was is called Machane Shechina, the camp of the Shekhinah. That's where the Mishkan was. Outside of that was called the Machane Levi'ah, and then outside that you had the Machane Yisrael. You can see here that we were configured in. You had different tribes to the east, to the west, to the north, and to the south, and they all had to live there. And each tribe, they had a head tribe. Each section had a head tribe. So to the east was 3 tribes: Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun. Yehuda was the lead. To the west was Ephraim, Menashe, and Binyamin. And Ephraim was the lead. The north was Dan, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan was the lead. And to the south was Reuven, Shimon, Gad, and Reuben was the lead. And all of the leading tribes are closest to the Mishkan. Now here, let's look at the numbers. Again, I'm missing something, which my fault. I just threw this together very quickly. Here are the numbers. To the east, you have Yehuda, Yisachar, Zevulun. That adds up to 186,400. North is these tribes. This is called Dan is called Me'asef L'chol HaMachanot. The tribe of Dan was one of the largest. You could see the only one that's larger than them is Yehuda. But they, when they would travel, would be in a position that Chachamim tell us that they would always be the last ones to make sure that when they were traveling, to make sure no one lost anything or lost the way. You know, like when you're checking out of a hotel, you need someone to stay back and say, all right, I'm going to check under the bed, in the closets. Chachamim tell us Dan was Me'asef L'chol HaMachanot. He was the one who was gathering everything because they were the last ones to travel. Ephraim to the west, the numbers are pretty even, and Reuven to the south. There's so many interesting things when you look at this number. There's so many interesting things to comment on. But you know, I'll keep my love for numbers. I'll try to hide it a little bit. When you add this all up, you get 1, 2, 3, and 4. You get this subtotal down here of 603,500. Now the truth is the number should be 603,550. This should be 50. I'm missing something. Extra credit if anyone could see where I'm missing the 50. One of these tribes I'm missing a number. Extra credit if you could find out. So what's interesting about this is, let's do a little bit of math together, okay? Any volunteers who's willing to unmute themselves? It's not going to be difficult. Oh, I have a chat here. Oh, maybe you're supposed to add the inner camp. I actually think that when you add up the inner camps of the levi'im, you're going to add another 22,000, because the Torah tells us when they counted the levi'im, there was 22,000. So I think that's a lot more than 50. I think I'm actually missing a number from here, from the ones that are here. I just did it very quickly. But in terms of your comment about the tribe of Levi, we see this week that there was 22,000. So you know what? Let me just, for completion, let me just write that down. The Levi'im were 22,000. Okay. Good point that you brought up. They are not included in this. In this grand total, they are not included. Okay, so I want someone to unmute themselves, please. Someone who's going to be my help me think through the math. If we had 603,000 men above the age of 20, how many? I want to try to count how many people there were in the desert. So if I say, like, let's do times 1, how many women would you say there are in the desert? Similar age. Yes, Mr. Cordvani, you're our volunteer.
So yeah, so basically, if if all you have to think is how many people, how many years did they live? If they lived up to 80, you multiply this number by 4. If they, let's say they lived up to 100, you multiply it by 5.
Okay. So let's see how. Yeah. So how do you get to that? So for each man above the age of 20, let's add a woman. So we're going to double it. Now let's think about how many children we should have below the age of 20. How many should we say for each couple? How many should there be? How many kids? 2, 3 for each couple.
No,
How much? How much?
Rabbi, I'm saying simple math. If a lifespan of a person was
You're
100
talking.
years
You're
old,
talking. Right. You're
then
talking about above.
we are 40 years. We're counting 40 years from 20 to 60. If the lifespan, let's count everybody from age of 1 till 100, let's say. If Moshe Rabbeinu lived up to 120 and the brothers and sisters lived 123 and 126, it's fair to assume that people lived up to 100 at that time.
Okay.
So if 40 out of 100 is 600,000, you multiply it by the same ratio, because same amount of women and then half amount of children under the age of 20 and same amount of people from age of 60 to 100. So the math at the end of the day, it's going to be either between, if you want to say they lived up to only 80 years old normally, then they've been 2.5 million.
Okay.
Because 4 times 600,000. If it's they lived up to 100, then 3 million.
Very good. Okay, I understand how you're saying it. I would even argue that the way the Jewish people are is that each generation they have more kids, meaning each couple will have even more. So if anything, I think it should be growing. But I agree with you in general. So if you do the math that way, you're going to end up between, as you said, around 2.5 to 3. Let's call it 3.5 million. So on average, let's say 3 million, right? There are 3 million Jewish people. And this is just counting up the number of men. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Korvani, for pitching in with the math there. It's very important to keep in mind that when we were in the desert and we accepted the Torah, we're entering the holiday of Shavuot. There were 3 million Jewish people there. Why is this important? Maybe I'll come back to this when we wrapping up speaking about Shavuot. So, okay, this is the beginning of the Torah. Let me stop sharing screen so you could we could continue speaking about the parasha. So we spoke about the different camps. They're in different areas. The Torah tells us that each of those groups had a flag. It's like there was a team. It's very interesting. Chachamim tell us that there were flags because these people, these tribes were different, and they understood that, and they each represented different parts of the Jewish people. And like symbolically, they had different symbols and flags to represent that. The way the Chachamim say is that the same way two people's faces are not the same, even identical twins, they're a little bit different. So too, all of us are different. We each have a different mission. We each have a different purpose. We each have different passions and different things that we're supposed to accomplish in this world. The 3 million Jewish people that were there, they were all different, right? This is something Chachamim tell us in this parasha. Then we count the levi'im. We say that there were 22,000 levi'im, as someone pointed out. The levi'im were not part of this count, but there were 22,000 levi'im. And then we get to the part of the parasha where Hashem says, it used to be that the ones doing the service should be the Bechor, the firstborn. Why? Because when we left Egypt, which is still fresh at this time, when we left Egypt, Hashem took the life of every firstborn of the Egyptians. And to remember that forever, he wants us to say, hey, firstborns are mine, because he doesn't want us to ever forget what happened when we left Egypt. Now, when we say firstborns are mine, that means the firstborns have to do the service in the Beit HaMikdash. But it's going to be very impractical if every firstborn from every family leaves their home and starts working in the Mishkan. And also, Chachamim tell us that when we did the sin of the Chet HaEgel, who were the ones to stand up against this? It was Shevet Levi. It wasn't the Bechors of every family. It was Shevet Levi. So the job of running the home of God, the job of running the Mishkan was going to be given to the Levi'im. How many Levi'im are there? 22,000. How many Bechors are there? Firstborns? If we count it up, there are 22,273. Very precise number. We have an extra 273 Bechors. So what the Torah tells us is, hey, we we want to transfer the kedusha of the bechor to the levi, but we have a little bit more bechor. So at the end, what we ended up doing was there was some additional money. So here I'll read you a comment. The Torah describes the process which the redemptions were made. The levi'im took the place of the Israelite firstborn. The Levies, we said there were 22,000. Those 22,000 took the place of the 22,000 firstborns, but there was an additional 273 firstborns. What were they going to do with them? These excess Israelites were redeemed for 5 shekels each. Israelite livestock were redeemed for Levi livestock also. And then we did something where we did redemption of the bechors of the animals. It's a whole big process, essentially, to transfer the kedusha of the firstborn to the Levi, and then the Leviim had a function to take care of the Mishkan. And that's how the parasha ends, and next week's parasha begins. The parasha ends by telling us what the job of each family of Levi was. There are 3 families of Levi: Gershon, Kehat, Merari. These 3 families each had different functions. One of them had to take care of traveling. When they would travel the entire Mishkan, they would take it apart, they would put it back. They were the construction people. There would be some that were carrying the holy vessels, carrying the aron, carrying the shulchan, carrying the menorah, carrying the vessels that were in the Beit HaMikdash. Each of the Levi'im would have different functions, and it was given to the tribe of Levi to take place of the Bechor. The Bechor, firstborn, right, which the Bechor was made holy for us to never forget that when we left Egypt, Hashem took the lives of the firstborns in Egypt, so to commemorate that our firstborns are holy. But when it came to doing the service, we transferred the Kiddusha from the firstborns to the Levi'im. We went from 22 to 73. There were only 22,000 Levi'im. So the additional firstborns, we did a redemption by giving tzedakah. Essentially, each one was redeemed with some money. Now, just to wrap this up, tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem, is Shavuot. There's 2 things I want to mention. Number 1, the time of Shavuot was a time of Matan Torah. We accepted the Torah, and it's important for us to re-accept the Torah, to study the Torah tonight, over the next couple days, to try to grow our passion for our Torah. There's a custom that some have to stay up all night. I would say that if you can stay up all night, it's good. If you can't stay up all night, it's good to stay up a little and study Torah. The purpose is not to stay up and binge on cheesecake and ice cream. That's nice. You could have ice cream, but that's not obviously, that would make no sense to stay up and just have ice cream. It's to stay up to show your love for Torah and your passion for Torah, that you want to study it, that you want to take it with you. If you can't stay up all night, it's fine. There's no requirement to. I would say still push yourself a little bit tonight to study for a half hour, an hour, 2 hours, study some Torah. And then tomorrow you wake up fresh, study a little bit more. This is the holiday of our showing our passion and conviction to Torah. Now, the other thing that happened is we accepted the Torah from the mouth of God himself. We got the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments. And the first one was Hashem saying, I am God who took you out of Egypt. And who heard it? Every single Jewish person heard it. 3 million Jewish people, as we did the math with Mr. Korvani, 3 million Jewish people heard it. If this was not real, that 3 million people heard from the voice of God himself, whatever that means, let's say this Torah was fake. Let's say the religion was fake. You know what would have happened? Out of 3 million people, one of them would have told their child, say, hey, you know that thing in the Torah that it says keep the Shabbat? The whole thing is fake. It's false. No one ever spoke to us. It's just a way to make money. Don't do this. But that's not what happened. You had 3 million people who accepted Torah and gave it over to their children, and their children gave it over to their children. This is something that no other religion in the world even claims. The other religions, Hashem appeared himself to one man on the mountain with his donkey, for example. Or one man was the son of God and he became the prophet and now everything follows him. But our Torah was not given to one man. It was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was given to us 3 million people. Anochi and Lo Yeh Lecha, the first of the 10 commandments, the first 2 of the 10 commandments, we got it. Not Moshe. Am Yisrael got it. All 3 million of us heard it. And if that were false, the Torah would never continue. This is one of the biggest proofs that we know that the Torah that we have is emet, and the traditions that we continue are all the way back from the times of Moshe Rabbeinu.